Welcome to another Explainer. Today, we are running a cybersecurity threat briefing. But get this, we aren't looking at your computer. We're looking at your mind. We're going to explore exactly how your brain, what we'll call your outdated paleolithic operating system, is actively being hacked by modern marketers, just to save metabolic energy. Here's our briefing menu for today. We're going to cover the Paleolithic operating system, hacks of debt and identity, the herd and the badge, and finally how to build your sovereign firewall. All right, jumping into part one, the Paleolithic operating system and biological hardware vulnerabilities. Let's look at the fundamental flaws in our biological and social hardware so we can really understand the machinery that's being targeted here. There are exactly 6 specific behavioral triggers that marketers use to literally bypass your prefrontal cortex entirely. That's the logical, analytical part of your brain. But hey, when you're bogged down with daily problems and cognitive fatigue sets in, well, these 6 engines just kick right in. They shut down your logic and basically force a state of automated compliance. So, what are they? These are Dr. Robert Cialdini's 6 principles of influence: reciprocity, commitment, consensus, authority, liking, and scarcity. And make no mistake, these are not just soft, fuzzy marketing suggestions. This is the holy grail of behavioral hacking. It's literally a reverse-engineered blueprint of your human Paleolithic operating system, perfectly designed to exploit the shortcuts your brain evolved thousands of years ago. Moving right along to part 2, hacks of debt and identity, focusing on reciprocity and commitment. Let's see how these vulnerabilities build into a systemic attack on your self-image. Okay, so the first hack is reciprocity. Back in ancestral times, returning a favor is what kept the tribe cohesive, right? But today, somebody hands you a tiny unearned asset, like, I don't know, a free piece of cheese on a toothpick at the grocery store. Suddenly, your brain registers this really uncomfortable social debt. To resolve that tension, what do? You end up buying a $15 block of cheese you didn't even want. It is a complete false debt trap. Next up is commitment. Now, this hack relies on our mind's absolute hatred of feeling like a hypocrite. They get you to agree to this tiny micro step. Maybe you just click Start Free Trial. Easy, right? But once you make that tiny public commitment, your identity actually rewrites itself to stay consistent. So when they eventually escalate to a high-stakes, super expensive contract, you fall in line, just to prove you are who you said you were. Part 3. The herd and the badge, consensus, authority, and liking. Let's examine how our tribal gravity and naive deference are actively being weaponized against us. So let's look at consensus, or social proof. Out in the wild, if the tribe ran left, well, you ran left to avoid being eaten. Makes sense. But today, industries mimic this exact feeling with bestseller or trending now tags. Your brain falsely assumes that if 1 million people are buying something, it simply must be great. But we completely forget that the crowd is frequently buying absolute garbage, right? Then we have authority. Literally from birth, we are conditioned to obey titles. White lab coats, uniforms, the whole shebang. The damage really occurs when a corporate suit or an expert speaks, and we treat it as this blind deference shield. We just completely stop checking the facts and hand over our sovereignty to someone else's agenda. And then there's the principle of liking. This is where manipulators run these advanced rapport-building scripts. They mirror your behavior or project this hyper-palatable warmth. It acts as what you could call a charisma solvent. Your analytical defenses just completely dissolve. Next thing you know, you're treating a highly calculating salesperson like a lifelong friend, completely blind to the fact that they are really just trying to pry open your wallet. Which brings us to the absolute most aggressive trigger, scarcity. Just look at how drastic this is. When scarcity is introduced, your analytical checks shrink to a tiny 10% sliver of your decision-making process. Your logical brain effectively shuts down, and a massive 90% of your drive just becomes this high-risk leap driven by pure, unadulterated fear of missing out. Here's exactly how that panic plays out in the real world. A manipulator uses high-frequency triggers. You've seen them, right? Only 2 left in stock, or that incredibly stressful flashing countdown timer. This taps into a deep, deep ancestral panic. Your prefrontal cortex goes totally offline, you ignore your budget entirely, and you leap into a purchase out of pure FOMO. All right, part 4, building your sovereign firewall, securing your lineage. Now that we've completed our diagnostic, it is time to shift gears and construct an absolutely unkillable defense. So, this is what we are building:
A sovereign firewall. It's essentially a strategic, detached mindset that you use to consciously identify and neutralize this behavioral hacking in real time. And we desperately need this because these extraction engines, they're embedded into literally every single screen, video game, and corporate narrative we encounter.
The source material offers a really fascinating approach to defense here, particularly for the next generation. It heavily stresses that we shouldn't try to shield our kids from these traps because, well, shielding just makes them fragile. Instead, you turn the trap into a game of spot the hacker, out in the wild. Imagine you're navigating an online storefront with your kid, and you just point and say, hey, look at that flashing red countdown timer. Which one of Cialdini's levers are they pulling on your brain right now? By playfully calling out the biological hack as it's actually happening, you completely break the illusion just by naming the code. So, running your sovereign firewall is basically a 4-step sequence. Step 1, you identify the code behind the illusion. Step 2, you detach from the emotional panic of consumption. Step 3, you watch the crowd fall in line. And Step 4, you execute your own design. By doing this, you stop being a victim of automated compliance. You become this completely unbothered, highly strategic observer. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. As you go about your day-to-day and you inevitably encounter these everyday illusions, a flashing timer, a trending badge, maybe even a free sample, ask yourself, which lever are they pulling on your biological hardware right now? Keep your firewall active and stay sovereign.